Hi, Bookish Explorers. Jill Williamson here. I'm the author of the Blood of Kings trilogy and the Writing Craft book, Story World First. This is my second post on building a mythical story world, and today I'm starting the topic of creating your civilization. The term civilization is about the way of life in a certain place. It encompasses species and cultures, racial and ethnic groups, way of life, language, religions, magic, occupations, and technology. This is way too much for one post, so I'm going to break this up over the next few videos to give us more time to focus in on each aspect. Today, we're talking about creating species or different types of beings for your story. This does not include animal creatures, unless your main characters are animals. Later on, I'll do a video post just on how to create fantasy creatures. For now, we're focusing on how to create different types of humanoid beings that will populate your stories. For example, think about hobbits, elves, dwarves, and Uruk-hai in The Lord of the Rings, or the Klingons, Vulcans, and Ferengi in the Star Trek shows, or Wookiees, Jawas, Ewoks, and Gungans in Star Wars, Doctor Who's Time Lords and Daleks. And then there are those humans who have been changed into a new type of being, like vampires or werewolves or cybermen, or being one of the Borg Collective. When you set out to create a new type of people or being, it can be a lot of work. I like to start with something simple. Here are 3 examples I'll use throughout this video. Let's say that Gitals are human, but they use telepathy instead of speaking. And for example 2, let's say kilns are dog-like creatures that walk on 2 legs and speak to humans. And for example 3, how about swigs, which are slug-like creatures that are able to stick to people like leeches and suck the water from their body. Kind of gross. All of that is a good place to start, but those simple definitions aren't enough, or you end up with these very one-dimensional characters. So if we want to make these beings realistic to our readers, we need to put in the time to get to know them, everything about them. We need to study them. The trick is we also need to invent the material we're looking to study. So let's try it. Physical and mental attributes. Sometimes your simple definition will be enough physical description, but not always. Maybe female swigs are brown and male swigs are black. Maybe kilns have opposable thumbs, but also have retractable claws. And perhaps one can't tell a Gital from a mute human because they don't look any different from humans. So, consider giving your people group some kind of interesting physical or mental attribute. An example of a physical attribute is a Time Lord and the way their biology allows them to regenerate when they're mortally wounded. That is one of the most awesome physical traits I've ever encountered in storytelling. As for mental attributes, how about the Betazoids from Star Trek who have telepathic and empathic abilities, like Deanna Troi? I mentioned that Gitals speak with telepathy, but I could take that further. Just like with regular speech, there are dialects of speech patterns or social classes, so it might be fun to explore what a dialect of telepathy might mean. Perhaps our dog-like kilns have canine instincts, a pack mentality, and alpha male. Or maybe they have a heightened sense of smell. Or maybe we should forget about comparing them to dogs at all. Most authors do the easy thing. Look like dogs, let's take dog behaviors. That's not always wrong, but it might be more unique to spin this in a different way. We could give those canine attributes to our slug-like swigs, let them have the pack mentality and the heightened sense of smell. Then we could give the dog-like kilns different instincts. Maybe they're nomadic and they travel for mating like penguins or salmon or something like that. In the movie Minority Report, there are 3 mutated human precogs that have the psychic ability to predict crimes for the pre-crime division of the police department. So people are apprehended based on that foreknowledge. Precogs also have a hive mind. Kinda creepy cool, huh? Magical abilities. Not every being or creature needs magical abilities, but for those that do, think it way through. I'm going to do a post on how to create magic later on, and I'll throw lots of types of magic at you then. For now, think about how these magical abilities flow and contrast with the being's physical and mental abilities. And there should be different levels of skills involved too with magic. Like in The Lord of the Rings, Galadriel has the extraordinary ability to peer into the minds of others, to see their intentions and read their thoughts and speak to them. Yet very few other elves had this ability. Racial and ethnic groups. Every people group should have characteristics that set some apart from others. This could be groups that share distinctive physical attributes, unique cultures, religions, language, or ways of life. Our dog-like kilns might have different species, similar to dogs. Imagine differences between humanoid German Shepherds and a humanoid poodle and a humanoid Chihuahua. Kind of silly, huh? Oftentimes, beings might naturally divide themselves from others due to an ability or a physical feature, like the Sneetches with or without those stars on their bellies. Or maybe there's a history that sets apart different people groups. They could be a majority or minority, magical ability or the lack thereof, perhaps, like witches and wizards and squibs and muggles from the Harry Potter world. In the Star Trek episode, Let That Be Your Last Battlefield, the crew of the Enterprise encounter Lokai and Bele, two alien men from the same planet who are enemies because their faces, that are half black and half white, have the colors reversed. This fact seems inconsequential to the crew of the Enterprise, but it's a source of irreconcilable racial hatred between the two alien men. Giving conflicts to your racial and ethnic groups can really bring your story world to life. Make sure to try and incorporate some of that as you create. Culture. Think about the way of life for every type of people in your story. What do they eat? Where do they live? Do they live in separate family groups or in some other manner? Are they educated in schools in a master-apprentice type of a way, or is that not applicable? It could be that our telepathic Gitals go to school without even leaving their house. They simply have to find the right chat room of sorts in the telepathic place where their teacher is lecturing. Does your people group care about the arts, about manners, morality, upholding any laws? Are they poor or wealthy? Does class matter? What about gender roles? In the movie and the book Starship Troopers, everyone, male or female, had the right to enter the federal service and assume full citizenship. Religion. What do your characters believe and why? Do they worship based on observation? The sun gives light and therefore they worship it? How about cataclysmic events like earthquakes, eclipses, meteorites, or volcanoes? Writing on the wall of a cave? An ancient text? If there's magic in your world, or beings that have magical abilities, it could be that regular folk think those with magic are gods. Again, taking our example of Gitals, some humans might mistake them for angelic beings because their ability to read minds would be somewhat terrifying. The trick to making your religion work in your story is to have more than one type of religion, and then more than one sect of each religion, and make them clash with each other. In the film Avatar, the Na'vi worship a goddess called Ewa, and everything centers around her and how she makes the world work. Languages. There are two areas of language, creating a foreign language and slang. I'll cover each of these in separate videos as well. You can create your own language, but be careful that it's not confusing and doesn't take over your story. Another part of language for many people is the slang and special terms that are used in the story. Think about Harry Potter, for example. Magical spells come from Latin words, which give them a similar sound. Then there are the story world-like terms of muggle, squibs, mudbloods, purebloods, horcrux, quidditch, aberrate, etc. Occupations. In the movie Equilibrium, clerics arrest sense offenders for breaking the law. We already talked about those creepy precogs from Minority Report. How about the extractors from the movie Inception who go in and steal people's dreams? What kinds of interesting jobs can you create from what you've already brainstormed for your planet or civilizations? Did you have a valuable resource, creature, magic, something that can create jobs? Or do you have people that need to be trained to use some kind of special ability? There is always a good use for teachers. What is going on with the airplanes at my house today? And the birds? Technology. Decide on the level of technology for each type of people group in your book. They don't have to be the same and probably shouldn't be. The four most important things to consider with technology are vehicles, weapons, medicine, and communication. What level are each of these things at? Do your people have electricity, cars, airplanes, gunpowder, penicillin, cell phones? Make sure you take the time to think through each of these for each of the different peoples in your story. how it all interacts. The key to making all of this cool stuff you've brainstormed work in a novel is how it's going to interact with each other and your plot. Look for points of conflict. How will your different beings and creatures interact with one another? How will they interact with their technology and with the magic? And when you give your characters story goals, how will those goals intersect with all of the things in your setting that you've created? In my Blood of Kings books, Aegon learns that he has the ability to blood voice. It's a telepathic ability, but he doesn't know how to use it, and his untrained voice is a continual beacon to the bad guys chasing him. Vrel also is learning to blood voice, but she is afraid of Aegon's power and worried about what he might find out in her head, identifying who she really is, so she's constantly trying to shield her mind. Plus, they're traveling through pitch black darkness, which makes everything more complicated. In my book Captives, the rebels have to cut out SIM tags from their hands to avoid detection from the government's grid. They're kind of like GPS trackers. When they need to pass through SIM tag checkpoints or want to be seen on the grid as rebels, however, they have to wear a glove that contains a dummy SIM tag. Mason is a doctor, and he is helpful in that he can quickly remove SIM tags from other people, which is necessary when new people want to join the rebel cause. That makes Mason really important to the rebellion in a special way. I know all of this is a lot to think about, and I don't recommend doing it all in one day or even 1 week. Start with a simple overview of each area. Then, when you get stuck and realize that you don't know enough, take some time to brainstorm more. You only have to brainstorm the things you need. Don't waste days and weeks planning cool types of things, technology, and languages that have no place in your plot. Be wise with your time. Be strategic. The goal is to brainstorm enough of what's important to the story so that your reader thinks you've thought through everything in the entire world. This allows them to become so immersed in your story world that they don't want to leave, ever. What are some of your favorite fictional beings in science fiction or fantasy? Share in the comments.